Welcome to Chamber Talk. It's a great day for business in Dublin, Lawrence County, and I have James Malone with me today. James, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
We are at the Georgia Farmers Appreciation Day, and James is with the Georgia Farm Bureau Association. James, tell us a little bit about your role and your title with the Farm Bureau.
I am a 6th District Director for Georgia Farm Bureau, and it is made up of, we have 10 districts in the state, and we have 2 directors from each district. So we have 20 directors over the state, all active farmers. We also have 3 vice presidents and a president.
Okay, and tell me a little bit about some of the work that you guys do.
Well, Farm Bureau is it's a leadership role to help promote farming community. It's actually the voice of agriculture. And we have a great legislative department who spends a lot of time in Atlanta. We have one guy on staff who stays in Washington, D.C., so we stay abreast of all the issues and work on the farmers' behalf.
Okay, and about how many members do you guys have? I think you got a pretty large membership.
Statewide, it's about 300,000. In Lawrence County, it's not quite 3,000.
And tell me a little bit about the financial impact of agriculture in Dublin, Lawrence County.
Financial impact is, I think it's over $58 million impact in Lawrence County, and it's still the largest industry in the state of Georgia.
Fantastic. And tell me, James, we hear the term sometimes in these types of meetings, in these arenas of grassroots. What's meant by grassroots?
Grassroots is one of the thing I love about Farm Bureau. We have a policy book which the board, the legislative department, everybody, that is our Bible for the year. And it always starts, we have a process that local counties send in their policies they won't change. And we have a couple of meetings in Macon, and then we go to Jekyll Island where we have about 800 delegates, and we discuss those and we vote on them, and those policies stay in effect for the next year, and that's what leads this organization. It is not a top-down organization. We start at the grassroots, start at the county level, and work the way up. It'd be great if our national government worked that way.
So you're taking information not just from Dublin, Lawrence County, but from all throughout the state of Georgia. Exactly. And these leaders are coming together and at the ground level, the policies and procedures and things that you guys will work on in the coming year, that's where it's created.
That is correct. It starts at each county in the state of Georgia can send in any type policy they want, and it's debated and it's voted on by the members.
Fantastic. And for someone that's watching the show today that may not fully understand, or maybe they do understand and they want to be more involved, how would somebody become more involved with the Georgia Farm Bureau?
Well, you start at the local level, so you'd want to be a member of Lawrence County Farm Bureau. Dues are $25, and we have a great benefit package. You get your money back with all kind of different benefits. And you're supporting agriculture, and it's a great organization to be in.
Okay, we got a lot of folks on the show today, some folks from in town, some from out of town. James is a local person here. You see him out and about in the stores, the businesses, the industries. So if you have any questions or even comments about the Georgia Farm Bureau, I'm sure James would love to share with you.
Exactly, I would.
Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Okay, I have Robert Fountain with me now. Robert is the Vice President and first Vice President of Middle Georgia Farm Bureau. Robert, welcome to the show first, and tell me a little bit about your role with the Georgia Farm Bureau.
Well, I've been fortunate to be Vice President of Georgia Farm Bureau since 1997. Served the state organization, which we have offices in all of our counties, and the organization has been active since 1937. So we have a tremendous history and heritage of representing farmers and agriculture throughout the state of Georgia, and I'm very honored to be a part of this organization. I farm myself. So it's important that the good work that Farm Bureau does in representing agriculture and the interests of Georgia farmers is active and well today.
Okay, and you mentioned something there. Not only are you part of the Farm Bureau, but you farm yourself. Can you share with our viewers what are some of the big changes that you see in the industry today?
Well, there's a lot of new technology, of course, that has become very much a part of agriculture. Of course, most people are familiar with GPS and how much of the farm equipment can be operated by satellite with great precision. And where that is so important to the producers themselves is it can strategically place the inputs that go into a crop, such as fertilizer and chemicals, in the places it needs to be to get the maximum benefit, as opposed to just broadcasting it and spending more money. So it's much more economical and efficient. Also, the irrigation systems that are being used today across Georgia are so much more efficient in their use of water, because water is so critically important to all of us in our rural communities, our cities, and of course in agriculture. When you need water, especially in a year such as we've just come through, where the drought has been so devastating in parts of the state, having the ability to use water and to produce your crops and do so in an efficient manner and an economical manner, it's environmentally positive also. That's one of the new technologies that have come down the pike and we're seeing in agriculture today.
Okay, for our viewers, I know we have some obvious, I guess if you would call them staples in the farm industry that we grow and produce here in Georgia. But what are some of the key things maybe that we produce here that folks may not be aware of?
Well, some of the newer things that are really catching on, especially around the larger metropolitan areas, are the locally grown produce, the farmers markets. Of course, we've always had the farmers market or some version of it here in Lawrence County and other rural parts of the state, but it's become very important and significant to the larger cities, because so many of the consumers today want to see where their food comes from. They want to interact with the people that produce it. They don't want to necessarily just go to the grocery store and buy good quality food, which is of course available, but they also are interested in seeing and talking to the people that actually grow the food and how it's handled, how the animals are treated, and so there's a story to share there with the public that is in some cases 2, 3, or 4 generations removed from the farm, but they still want to have an interconnection with farm people and the people that are actually growing the food that they consume and that they provide for their families. So that's I think is something that's new and dynamic and is really starting to come into focus around the country.
Fantastic. Hey, we had a great day planned here, Farmers Appreciation Day today. Robert, thank you for being on the show.
Choose the convenience of Neighbors Express and get friendly, courteous service every time you visit any of our convenient locations. Fill up with pay at the pump and take advantage of our bigger and better selection of beverages and tobacco products. Buy 12 packs of Pepsi products, 2 for $6.99. Enjoy the popular crushed ice with your favorite fountain drink. Also enjoy a fresh, hot breakfast. Stop by for lunch or dinner. It's always fresh, always convenient at Neighbors Express, now located at I-16 and 441 and in Cedar Grove, providing farm fuel for all our customers. Count on the convenience of Neighbors Express.
Okay, we've caught up with Raymond Joyce, the UGA Extension Coordinator for Dublin-Lawrence County. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right, for Lawrence County. That's
okay.
Right.
And Raymond, tell me a little bit about your role and how UGA participates in the Georgia Farm Bureau, and especially as related to Dublin and Lawrence County.
All right. With UGA Extension, we're part of the College of Agriculture and Environmental Science in Athens, part of the University of Georgia, and we're one leg of that, the extension. There's research, teaching, and extension, and that's what we are here. And we take the information from the main campuses and our experiment stations, and we bring it to the citizens here in Lawrence County. And we do that through TV, newspapers, classes, workshops, all kinds of things that we do. Our relationship with Farm Bureau here locally, not only are we next door to each other, but we're good neighbors. We work together on various projects like the Farmer Appreciation Day and school activities that they have as well, and participate with them. But Farm Bureau is the voice of agriculture, and we're there with them, supporting them, and they support agriculture as well.
Okay, so are you guys maybe in addition almost the marketing committee and to some extent maybe for the Farm Bureau?
Well, no, we're not really marketing. They have their own. We basically, cooperative extension, we basically take the research information and we're basically educational. We're not regulatory, we're not marketing anything. All we do is work with different groups such as the Chamber, work with the cities and counties here as well through their support of us. But with extension, what we are education. We have three main areas. We have agriculture and natural resources. We have our 4-H and youth program that we work with the students in the schools here in Lawrence County. And then we have our family consumer science program that works with families and our child care providers here in the county, providing educational opportunities for them.
Okay, so a lot of educational work, a lot of the background work maybe that goes into farmers producing good products and crops, and maybe not seen out front as much, but you guys are certainly a valuable part of what's being done.
Right. We are there. We're across the state of Georgia. We're part of the land grant universities, which is University of Georgia. We work with Fort Valley State University as well as our sister organization. We work with them here in the state, and we do provide workshops for our farmers, mainly in the spring. I also go out and do troubleshooting, one-on-one activities with them to help find out what may be going on or to troubleshoot something going wrong with their crop. We'll do that, but we are there to help them, and if I don't know the answer, we have a whole level of people above me on the specialist level in Athens and Grifton and Tifton that we call on to get the answer.
Okay, fantastic, Raymond. We appreciate you guys. Appreciate all your hard work. We certainly appreciate the University of Georgia and all that they do, and especially through this extension to Dublin and Lawrence County. And I can't have a UGA person of any type on the show without having, I got to say, go Dogs.
That's right. Go Dogs.
Okay, I have Joe Kynard with me. He's the city clerk and finance director here with the city of Dublin, and he's here today at the Farmers Appreciation Day, and we thought it might be a great time just to say thank you to some of these farmers and some of these folks in this room for all the hard work they do all year.
Right. Well, yeah, I really appreciate the farmers in Lawrence County and all over America.
And all the jobs they produce, and with the holiday season, Joe, I know you like me, you like to have some good fresh produce.
Certainly do.
And we got a great farmers market here in downtown.
Yes, we do, and it's closed right now, but it'll be open in the spring. And I've been coming to this luncheon probably about 25 years or so.
And Joe, we appreciate you. We appreciate the city of Dublin. And today, more than anything, we want to say how much we appreciate the farmers, the Georgia Farm Bureau, the UGA Extension, and all the folks that are here today that make it a great day for business every day in Dublin and Lawrence County. Thank you, Joe. Okay, I have Mary Morris with me. She's the office manager here at Dublin Lawrence County Farm Bureau. And I understand, Mary, that you have a lot to do with all the wonderful things that are going on here today.
Yes, sir, I do. It's a pleasure to help with the Farmer Appreciation Luncheon every year to show the farmers, how much we appreciate them because that is our source of food.
And how many people, I just came from the kitchen in there, you were in there with your gloves on and preparing plates. How many folks are we serving today?
We hoping somewhere around between 200 and 225.
Wow, and how many years have you been doing this?
34 years.
34 years. Mary, thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for all of your hard work. We appreciate you. Okay, I want to welcome a great friend to the community here, Sam Pardue, and I'm not even going to try to tell you his title. I'm going to let him share that with you.
Well, I have the great privilege of being the Dean and Director of the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences at the University of Georgia.
Okay, and Sam, explain to our viewers exactly, that's a great title. What do you do?
I am responsible for people and budgets and programming for the College of Ag.
Okay, and tell us a little bit, Farmer Appreciation Day, and you come today, you're going to be a main speaker here today. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be sharing with the folks in attendance today.
We'll talk about the importance of agriculture in Georgia and globally, and the impact that the university hopefully has to help Georgia Ag grow, and that'll be the general topic of the day.
And in general, as a state, how are we doing?
Well, despite the drought, we're doing pretty well. Commodity prices could be better, but it's still the largest sector of the economy in the state of Georgia, about $75 billion a year. Tourism is number 2, but it's about a quarter of what ag brings in.
Yeah, folks like to eat.
Absolutely, at least 3 times a day.
And here in the South, even more so. Outside of weather conditions this year, and of course the lack of rain, what are some other challenges maybe that we faced this year?
Well, early on we had some issues with worker visas and getting labor into the state. That's always a challenge. I think, we've had an opportunity where we can try and grow our markets, but some places are not as open markets as we'd like for them to be, but exports remain an important factor in all that we do.
Okay, so a big year planned for 2017?
We're hoping. I've been here about 8 months now and learning the state. Georgia's a big state. It's the largest landmass east of the Mississippi, and I've gotten to know a great deal of folks here in the state, so we're hoping for a great 2017.
Hey, we appreciate all you guys do. Thank you for joining us on the show
pleasure.
today. Happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas.
You as well.
It's time to tackle our great savings on all of our hardwood flooring. We've got a great lineup of laminates, ceramics, and carpet.
So roll in to Bailey's Custom Flooring.
Don't forget, we also have vinyl and carpet in stock.
Events like this are going on all across the nation today because this is Farm City Week. And Farm City Week was started in 1955 by Kiwanis International to increase the understanding between rural and rural residents and to show our appreciation for the partnership that we all enjoy together. 1 in 7 Georgians work in agriculture, production, forestry, or a related field. It takes a lot of partners to get our products to the consumer, from the ones that supply the inputs we as producers need, such as seed, fertilizer, chemicals, fuel, capital, and so forth, and to processing, transportation, and selling at the retail level. So I see a lot of partners out here today, and I want to thank you for what you do for the ag industry. We've got I want to ask, how many is here for the first time to this luncheon? Raise your hand. All right, good. We got a few. Glad to have y'all with us. We got a couple of guests I want to recognize. Larry Walker, where are you? Our state senator. Larry, glad to have you with us. Robert Fountain, where are you? He's our Georgia Farm Bureau Vice President and First Vice President. Thank you, Robert. Let's have all of our local elected officials, if y'all would please stand. Now I'd like for the farmers, ranchers, and timber producers, if y'all would all stand. All right, y'all remain standing. And now I would like for the partners that I've talked about in the ag industry, people that supply the inputs, do the processing, retailing, so forth. Guys, stand up. I'll buy fuel from you. Y'all stand up. Thank y'all all for coming. Now I'm going to do something. I want to recognize my parents. Do we have a farmer here that's over 95 years old? All right, my dad, you won the prize. He's taught me a lot about life and a lot about farming. And one day when I was a youngster, he taught me how to do business with a banker. It's been a year sort of like this, and so I went with him over to the bank, and we walked into the president's office there, and he said, I got good news and bad news. Bad news is I'm not going to be able to pay back my loan this year. The good news is I'm going to stick with you one more year. So at this time, I want to thank the county extension staff, the Farm Bureau staff, and the Women's Committee for setting all this up, preparing the food and serving the food. They deserve a big hand. Thank y'all. I'd like to recognize our sponsors, and as I call out your name, if you're affiliated with the bank, would you please stand? I'm going to start with Ag Georgia Farm Credit, Atlantic South Bank, Bank of Dudley, Capital City Bank, Citizens Bank of Lawrence County, Community Bank of Dublin Lawrence County, Farmer State Bank, and Morris Bank. We thank y'all for your sponsorship, and we thank you for what you do to the ag community here in Lawrence County day in and day out. Thank you. Raymond, it's your turn on the program. I'm going to call you up to give an update on agriculture.
All right, as James said to all those bankers, they're going to stick with you one more year. One more year, hopefully, with that. Question I'm getting asked the most, and I just always, about when it's going to rain, and I go, well, we're going to have to pay the preachers more, I guess, Tyler, is to get the preachers. But again, that has been the question that I get asked most wherever I go is, when's it going to rain? And I tell them, well, if I knew that, I wouldn't be working with the college at Extension. I'd be somewhere else for that. But to kind of look at the year and review, and it kind of took me I looked back yesterday and was kind of thinking about this time last year. We had plenty of rain, and even into December we had floods. I'm sure our friends on the river down there who live on the river recognize that. We did have flooding, so we've gone from feast to famine as far as rainfall, and that is what we're seeing now, is that with the lack of rain, it's kind of got everybody concerned about what's going to be happening. Our climatologist, Pam Knox, in the college says basically what we see is what we get, is what we'll have probably for the next, into spring of next year. So that's something that we need to really work on and start praying hard that it's going to turn around and go a different way. But looking at this past year, with that, we had our small grains, which are wheat and oats. We had a fairly good crop with that. Corn yields were up in our corn, particularly our irrigated, due to rainfall as well as the irrigation. Our peanut acres were up, and we saw some up and down yields depending on, as we always say, wherever you were standing, wherever it rained at, particularly under dry land. For dry land, non-irrigated, it was wherever you stood for that. Soybeans, we're continuing to harvest those. I was talking with a producer yesterday, but again, depending on where the rain happened, we had good yields. Cotton acres were down because peanut was that way, and also the price of cotton. We got to wear more cotton, folks. And also for our cattle producers, they saw their profits this year cut in half. Basically, they were getting double the price for their animals last year this time, but now those animals are cut in half for that. If you look in your program with me, just to kind of highlight a few things, the farm gate value that we estimated for 2015, I'll be starting to work on the 2016 numbers after the first of the year, but you can see the impact that agriculture has for Lawrence County, over $58 million here in the county. And then also you'll notice these are some of our row crops, but as James mentioned, our timber, our cattle, our dairy, and something that's new. I can remember as a kid in the 70s, growing up, 60s and 70s, we had poultry producers in our county, but we saw those go by the wayside, but now we have new poultry producers in our county, and you can see that was a number added in in 2015, and we'll actually see that poultry number go up, because we've had about 5 more houses, I believe, 5 or 6 more houses added in Lawrence County, and those chickens are a part of the Purdue family, not Pardue, but Purdue. Sam will talk about that in a minute. But with that, and we're seeing the poultry industry increase here, and mainly for what we call the breeder houses. These are where they collect the eggs, and they're taken to the hatchery and are hatched out. And from there, you can see again something I mentioned last year was the age of the farmer, 62. We've got to get some young people into farming, and some of you that have grandchildren or nieces and nephews, know many people, young people talk to me and say, I want to go into farming, but it's kind of tough for them, but they're not necessarily, there's always jobs available in the ag side of things for that, but just something to consider and encourage you for that. Some other positive things though for this year, we had 10 acres of blackberries harvested this year here in the county. Dr. Billy Moses and his son William harvested 10 acres of blackberries for the first time, and those were wholesaled and also sold retail here at the farmers market. As I mentioned, the poultry houses, and we've got some other ag-related activities that are going on that we're real proud of. But the biggest thing is going to affect for hay for our cattlemen this year, where a lot of our hay that's grown here and peanut hay has gone to North Georgia, and many of you have seen the news up there. So the drought will be tough on us, but we're going to get through it. We've seen these years before. I'm sure your dad and other farmers of his age have seen these years, tough years, but we're going to get through it with that. And also I want to always remind you that as Americans, we eat the best of any country. We eat the cheapest or least expensive food in the world. We also eat the safest food in the world as well, and it's plentiful. So always remember that and be thankful for what we have. And I thank all the opportunity to work with these farmers and agribusiness people here in our community, which is a wonderful program and activity that I can be a part of. But again, thank a farmer. Think about it this week when you sit down to eat, and be thankful for what we have with that.
When my husband experienced chest pain, I knew he had to go to the ER at Fairview Park Hospital because it had an accredited chest pain center. Chest pain isn't like a broken arm or a high fever. They treat chest pain like the serious condition it is, and they treat it fast. And it was a good thing we knew the difference because my husband was in cardiac arrest.
Oh, I was fine.
Now he is.
Treat chest pain like chest pain. Choose the ER at Fairview Park Hospital.
Now I'm going to introduce our speaker to change gears, but want to introduce Dr. Sam Pardue, who is the Dean of the Dean and Director of the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. I can say he's probably, well, he is one of my midi-level bosses, I guess I could say from there. And also I do want to point out, before I introduce the Dean, I do want to point out Joanne Milan, who is from the Southeast District. She is my immediate supervisor, and she's the one that tries to keep us straight with that. But we have her with us today, and we're glad to have her with us as well. But let me introduce our speaker today, Dr. Sam Pardue. He's Dean and Director, as I said, of the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. For those of you, that's the University of Georgia in Athens, you know, the team that's going to win this weekend with it. But Dean Pardue is a noted poultry science researcher, and he's a former administrator at North Carolina State University. Before joining UGA this year in 2016, he's only been here a few months. He was the Associate Dean and Director of Academic Programs at NC State in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. And prior to being named Associate Dean in 2012, he served for 7 years as the head of the Department of Poultry Science, which in 2012 was named the Prestige Department of Poultry Science in honor of a $10 million gift that he helped secure. And we know we're going to see that helping. Hopefully we can get some of that money secured for many of our departments at the college as well. He helped double the number of poultry science majors. He expanded distance education offerings. He also helped to acquire external funding to modernize the teaching labs at NC State. He also served as co-principal investigator on a USDA grant to increase the multicultural diversity of ag students, and was founding member of the college's Diversity Council. The Department of Poultry Science at NC State is ranked in the top 10 in 5 research publication and citation criteria among the animal and poultry sciences under his leadership. He invested in a biological safety level 2 facility to expand the department's research capabilities, and also supported the development of poultry processing lab to address the needs at NC State, and also North Carolina's largest agribusiness being poultry. He was on the administrative board of NC State's graduate school. He served as the university's faculty athletics representative for 5 years and served as the college liaison for accreditation by SACS, or the Southern Association of College and Schools. Our local tech school just went through that, and that's a big hurdle to jump. He has conducted his research with $2.5 million in external funding. He holds 3 patents and published nearly 100 journal articles, book chapters, and abstracts. He has presented and been invited to give presentations across the U.S. and in Australia, Switzerland, Costa Rica, and Mexico. In addition to his honors, is being named NC State Academy of Outstanding Teachers, Alumni Distinguished Undergraduate Professor, and receiving the Perina Mills Award for Teaching. Dr. Pardue earned his bachelor's degree in poultry science and his master's and doctoral both in physiology from NC State. He's completed his postdoctoral training in genetics at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst and began his academic career at Texas A&M. You've been in a lot of southeastern schools there with that, and ACC schools as well. But join me in welcoming Dr. Sam Pardue here to Lawrence County.
Thank you, Raymond. You know, when I first got to Georgia, I had the great privilege of meeting former Governor Sonny Perdue, and he said, first thing I need to do is teach you how to pronounce your last name. It is P-A-R-D-U-E, and it's a little bit unique in that there is a chicken company based out of Salisbury, Maryland called P-E-R-D-U-E. And I always thought that I met Frank Perdue at that time, the CEO, and I said, Frank, you know, we've got to be related. It's so close. And I was thinking 2, maybe 3%. I won't tell you what Mr. Perdue said. Frank had the reputation of having some rather salty language, and he explained to me that I would not be receiving any of the funds from that company. But I am grateful to be here. It is a privilege to be able to serve as the Dean of the college. I know how impactful the University of Georgia has been in the lives of not only farmers, but all people who live in the great state of Georgia. So I'm grateful to be here. I would ask you not to tell my wife that I did eat the peach cobbler, because she told me I had to lose 5 pounds before Thanksgiving, and it's probably not going to happen. It might be a little bit small, but there is on the screen to my right. If you're in the back, if you've got 20/20 vision, you might be able to see it, but if you're like me, you probably won't. But that little green county that's highlighted in that slide is Yadkin County. That's where I grew up, in the foothills of North Carolina. My parents came from farming families. There were 7 children in my dad's family, 9 in my mom's. They chose to have 2, and I followed their example rather than Grandma and Grandpa's. But as it was mentioned, I committed the cardinal sin of academia. I got all 3 of my degrees at North Carolina State. You're normally not supposed to do that, but I had a great situation and an opportunity there, so I was very pleased to have that great opportunity. I did spend some time in Massachusetts. It was tough for a North Carolina boy to go up to the Northeast because it was cold. It started snowing around between Halloween and Thanksgiving. I didn't see the ground again until March. I would take a little bit of liquid precipitation right now. I started my career at Texas A&M University. Our daughter was born there. I'll tell you a story a little bit later on about whether or not she was a true Texan, but I'll save that for another day. I then came back in 1989 to North Carolina State and had the opportunity to join the faculty there.
And one of the things that I probably enjoyed more than anything else, I was the faculty athletic rep for 5 years. And that provided a liaison between the NCAA and the Atlantic Coast Conference at that time. My last year I was the president of the ACC. Now don't get excited because it's the commissioner who makes $1.8 million, not the president. I got paid nothing, but I had some pretty good seats. Our family spent 6 months on a study leave in Australia. Nothing like flying 24 hours, landing, getting in a rented vehicle where the steering wheel's on the other side and you drive on the other side of the road to tell you how you really ought to be humble in life. That was a unique experience. Great opportunity. If you ever get a chance, go visit that place. It is amazing. Well, I'm excited because the college plays a role in 3 major areas. It's research, extension, and outreach, and academics. And every day I'm reminded that the University of Georgia is the oldest publicly chartered institution in the land, and for those men and women who had the vision to create that institution, I'm certainly thankful this season as we look towards Thanksgiving. I want to share with you a quote that I've used before. I had the great privilege of meeting this gentleman, Dr. Bill Danforth. He is the grandson of the founder of Purina Mills. He is a doctor, a physician. He served in the Korean War as a doctor and later became the chancellor of Washington University in St. Louis. And so when I think about why we do what we do at the university, I'm often reminded of Dr. Danforth's quote, and he says that a successful university is a noble institution. I would submit to you there are not many noble institutions in our life, but this ought to be one. He says it is a statement of faith. Faith that human beings can be educated and that human thought is worthwhile, that the thinking, analyzing animal called man can use his unique talents for the benefit of himself and his fellows, that we can learn from our past, that we can change, and that by intelligence we can improve the lot and the lot of our children and their children. The University of Georgia stands as a beacon, I think, to what can be and what should be. And I am grateful for the taxpayers as they invest in that institution. If you have not purchased all your Christmas gifts, I've got one to recommend to you. This book, Start With Why by Simon Sinek. He's a British author. You may have seen him on TED Talks. He's got the 3rd highest rated TED Talk in the history of that particular series. And he developed this thing called the Golden Circle. And as we come upon Thanksgiving, I want us to think a little bit about that particular device that he uses. He says, you know, for many of us, we can describe what we do on a daily basis. That's not hard. We could probably even tell you how we do it. But the challenge that sometimes we have is to remember why we do what we do. And at the core of any organization, in a university, any company, if you lose the center, if you no longer remember why you do what you do, then we are in trouble, whether it is as a nation, or as a company, or as a university. So I'm grateful that that reminds me to think why we do what we do every day. And for the farmers and ranchers, I want to take a little bit of time and let's think about why we do what we do. So I'm grateful because my parents were the first in their families to ever have the opportunity to go to university. My dad, because of the GI Bill, he drove a tank in the Second World War, which is probably one reason why he can't hear today. My mom went to nursing school, and in the 50s that was free. But the thing I found is that education not only changes you as the individual, but it changes your family and the communities in which you live. And so I'm grateful for the University of Georgia and the fact that the college has 3 campuses in Athens, in Griffin, and in Tifton. My dad taught history, so I'm frequently reminded about historical events and gentlemen and women who've impacted our lives. This is a quote from Winston Churchill. He said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." Sometimes we need a crisis to focus, that gives us purpose, that provides us with an opportunity. And My wife took Hebrew and Greek in seminary, but she never learned. She took one semester of Chinese and said it was the hardest thing she ever took. But the Chinese word for crisis is actually made up of two characters, one that means danger, but the other that means opportunity. So even in the midst of crisis, we have opportunity. My father grew up during the Great Depression, and he talked about people who had vision and incredibly good luck could prosper during that time. It was not easy, but it was certainly an opportunity. But I will tell you, as we face many challenges in agriculture today, that for every complex problem, there is a simple, easy to understand, incorrect answer. If it were easy, we would have thought about it a long time ago. We've got some real challenges. The reason I know about this quote is that I did my work in my PhD on vitamin C and how it affected stress responses. Albert Szent-Györgyi was a Nobel Prize winner, and I think he was right. If somebody tells you they have a solution to a really difficult problem, be wary. The challenges we face today are going to take some time, some effort, and I'm grateful for the men and women at the University of Georgia as they work on that. So for those of you in the room that help produce food and fiber and timber, thank you. Because of this fact, by 2050, the human population is projected to exceed 9 billion folks. Now, I was born in 1955. There were 3 billion people on the planet. If the good Lord keeps me around till I'm 95, if I emulate your dad, I will have seen a tripling of the human population in my lifetime. There are 3 times more people on the planet. We're going to need to produce twice as much food by the year 2030. I used to think 2030 was a long way away. Folks, that's around the corner. You know the song, People Get Ready, There's a Train A-Coming? That train's got 9 billion people on it, and we better figure out how to feed them. So thank you for what you do every day. Here's a quote also from Pope Benedict, and he talks about the situation of hunger in the world. He says that hunger and malnutrition are unacceptable in a world in which in reality has sufficient production levels, the resources and the know-how to put an end to these tragedies and their consequences. Farmers today are incredibly efficient. We produce more food on less acreage with less inputs than any other time in history. It is a remarkable success story. And yes, there are places in the world, there are places in Georgia where people are food insecure. But I believe that we have the ability and we have the will to do that in our lifetime. About 50 years ago, 30% of the people on the planet were chronically hungry. Today, that's been cut about in half to only about 15% in the world. Now, that's still too many people. But we have done a remarkable job in my lifetime reducing hunger globally. Things are getting better. I want to show you some photographs. Many of you know this gentleman, Tom Vilsack. He was Secretary of Agriculture. You may not know this woman here. She is the Congresswoman from South Dakota. This is a gentleman who's from shall I say, a more progressive-leaning think tank. And then Michael Pollan, who's the author of The Omnivore's Dilemma and writes on food issues. These are very diverse people. Some are Democrats, some are Republicans, some are independents, but they all share this mindset. Food is a national security issue. You know what life is like if you are dependent upon foreign oil and foreign energy. Heaven help us if we're ever dependent upon foreign food, because there may come a time when nations will not sell us food if their own people need it. So I am grateful that this nation's been blessed with the ability to produce so much food for so many. And one reason why I think that's important, that is a curve of the human population. And you can see over about the past 200 years, that line has been going almost vertical. Pastor, we've got that be fruitful and multiply thing down pretty good. Here's what's happened. It took us over 120 years to go from 1 billion humans on this planet to 2. And you can see how that today we're adding another billion people roughly every 12 years. The Commissioner of Agriculture in North Carolina has a saying. He says that hungry people are mean people. And if we want peace in the world, we better figure out how we're going to feed them. This was a movie that came out about 2 years ago called Interstellar. And then there's a scene that I don't think is going to play, but we'll try. No, sorry. If you'd fix that for me, Raymond, and bring it up full screen. I tried to play it, I won't. Anyway, it's a film clip that says, we didn't run out of planes and televisions, we ran out of food. It's a movie about the future where there's chronic famines. Thank you. In fact, there's been some quotes. The food shortages could be most critical world issue by mid-century. And this is a magazine that focuses on science issues. Or could food shortages bring down civilization? If we don't have enough to eat, that impacts everything. I tell people all the time, I'd rather have a 4-ounce baked potato than 4 ounces of gold if I'm hungry. Gold may be pretty and shiny and I may like it, but it is not going to feed you. This is another film clip from the movie The Graduate. Some of you are old enough in here to know what that movie was. But there's a scene in there when he says, I've got one word for you. And he's trying to give some advice to a young man who just graduated college, and he said, plastics. Plastics is the future. I've got one word for you. It's water. I think water is going to be the next big thing. The reason being is that it's very difficult for us to produce the food that we need without water. We're in the middle of a drought. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but if we don't have adequate water, quite frankly, a lot of things fall apart. This is a map of the world. Those countries in red and in orange are projected to have significant water shortages over the next 25 to 30 years. Now, North America, you'll see, is in blue, and that we're in pretty good shape compared to much of the world. That doesn't mean we're not going to have isolated droughts, but we're much better off in some parts of the world. This gentleman actually worked for the Gates Foundation. He says, if current trends continue, the livelihoods of 1/3 of the world's population could be affected by water scarcity by 2025. A third of the people on the planet having issues around water. About a year ago, there was a movie that came out called The Big Short. It was about the housing bubble that occurred in 2008. There was one man who looked at it and said, the financials just don't make sense. And so he started shorting stocks that had housing loans. So he was basically betting that they were going to go down. The gentleman's name was Michael Burry. He was an analyst for Sycon Capital. During that period of time, 2008, 2009, when he had basically bet the farm on the fact that housing stocks and institutions that were making housing loans were going to go down, he made $267 billion betting on the housing market. So he's a really, really smart guy. So what is he buying now? He sees green in green. So basically what he says, I see the future in food. He said, I like to invest in water, but it's hard to invest in water. So I'm going to invest in the next best thing, which is food. Because in many ways, when we transfer food from one part of the world to the other, we're just transferring water. In fact, he says here that, somebody closer up is going to have to read that because I can't see it. But he talks about the fact that water is going to be a factor for us in the future, and I think food production as well. A couple of headlines about Mr. Bill Gates. Most of us know that he's a relatively wealthy individual. He's been buying up land in Georgia and Florida. I happened to be in Lyons, Georgia, and I met some of the people who work for him, and he said, some people think that Bill's simply buying this to be philanthropic, that he's going to buy it and grow things and give the food away. He said, no, he's not. He's a businessman. He's buying this farmland to make money. He might have should have looked at some commodity prices before he bought all that land, but he has. So I'm not telling you anything different, but we've got a drought. This is from the U.S. Drought Monitor for the state of Georgia. And if you see those really dark burgundy areas in the northwest corner and central, and that dark red section, those are exceptionally drought conditions, exceptional drought conditions. I don't know when it's going to rain. We need some rain. But it's not unique to Georgia. This is a slide from a lake in California, Lake Oroville. It's supposed to be a lake there. It's not. This is Folsom Lake in Northern California. Remember the Johnny Cash song, Folsom Prison Blues? That's about this area. There's supposed to be a lake behind that dam. And they have except for recently they've gotten some rain in California, but severe problems there. So I always ask, how does this impact Georgia? Well, what if we lost California? California produces half of all the fruits and vegetables in this country. Georgia may be having an opportunity to pick up some of the slack if California is not going to recover. I know this is a list, it's hard to read, but these are the percentages of different products that are produced in California. Now the data said 100% of all pomegranates. I got to think somebody else somewhere other than California is growing pomegranates, but they said 100% of them. Peaches. You know, Georgia is the peach state. California is number 1 in peach production. South Carolina is number 2. Georgia's number 3. But a whole host of things from spinach to tomatoes, lemons, broccoli, celery. Huge percentages of those are grown in California. Folks, if they don't have water, they're not growing food in California. We just had, on November the 7th, the D.W. Brooks lecture by a gentleman named Roger Thoreau. Roger wrote the book, here's my second suggestion for books for the holidays, The First 1,000 Days. He describes the importance of nutrition from the time of a baby's conception till that child is 2 years old. And if they don't get adequate nutrition, they're going to either be stunted mentally or physically and will never achieve the potential that they could. I'll tell you a quote by Mr. D.W. Brooks' mother. She said, "You do not feed people because they are good. You do not feed people because they're bad. You feed people because they're hungry." So this individual, Roger Thoreau, talks about how feeding people, particularly when they are small, impacts their life. I took this off a screenshot yesterday on the U.S. population. There are 324 million people in our country. There is currently 7.35 billion people in the world. And if you see that thing, it's churning. Someone is born on this planet every 8 seconds. Every 8 seconds. So the time I started talking, we've already had probably 20 people on the planet. I didn't mean to do that. I don't know what happened. I promise I didn't do it, right? Thank you. All right, this big green blob up there, that is Metro Atlanta. This is looking at population density. So the green is really high population. That kind of pale tan color represents what some demographers have called frontier counties. Frontier counties. I thought frontier was when you went out west, in the 1800s. But they say that because of population movement from rural areas to urban areas. In fact, the Fanning Institute has said 82 counties in the state of Georgia have lost population. Lost population. We can't grow a lot of food in the metro Atlanta area. We need people who are going to be able to work there. So thankfully that you are here and can do that. If you look at food insecurity, the darker the green, the higher the percentage of residents in those counties in Georgia that are food insecure, particularly in South West Georgia is a real challenge. In fact, a third of Georgia counties have greater than 20% of its population that is food insecure. And that basically means that at some point in a month, a family would not know where their next meal may come from. Some of you can see this, it may be a little bit too far away. You know, I have a job that takes me many places. It's a real challenge some days, but I get some really great perks. I was in Camilla, Georgia, getting ready to go down the Flint River with Mr. Glenn Cox. And I get a phone call, said, can you be in Plains, Georgia this afternoon at 5:45? And I said, well, I'm supposed to go down the river. She said, President and Mrs. Carter would like to invite you to dinner. And I said, yes, ma'am, I will be there. So we get to this home, 2 Suburbans roll up, Secret Service. President Carter walks out, blue jeans and a t-shirt on. He sticks his hand out and says, hi, I'm Jimmy Carter. And I said, yes, sir, I know. So you do get some great perks when you have this job. And you know, while the job of dean, the position of dean is challenging, this is a list of the 10 most dangerous jobs in America. Logging and fishing, if you've seen the TV series Deadliest Catch, I don't want to be looking for snow crab in the Bering Sea with the kind of weather they have to put on. Farming is number 9. And thankfully, through some outreach programs, we've been able to reduce that rate. But I want to show you a slide, I think, of a gentleman who has the hardest job in the world. This is a young man who's holding a target for new recruits for a country somewhere in Southeast Asia. He either has great confidence in his comrades or he's done something really wrong and his sergeant is really giving him a hard time. So in closing, let me tell you, we're going to have Thanksgiving. We're all going to eat too much. We're going to watch a lot of football. But I think every time that we're fed here in the state of Georgia, I hope you'll pause and thank somebody that wears Georgia red. Thank you very much.